The massive ship hung in space like a dark metal mountain. Its hull was black as the void between stars, covered in spikes and ridges that looked like the bones of some ancient beast. Inside, Commander Zixthara stood 12 feet tall, his body a mix of living flesh and cold metal. His forearms ended in claws sharp enough to cut through steel, and his eyes glowed red in the darkness of the bridge. Around him, dozens of screens showed star maps of the galaxy. Each point of light represented a world his people had hunted. Each world meant another species that no longer existed. For 3,000 years, the Kethmori had been the apex predators of the galaxy. They hunted not for food or resources, but for the pure joy of the kill. "Commander," one of his hunters called out, "we have found new prey." Zixthara turned toward the younger Kethmori. The hunter's exoskeleton was still unmarked by battle scars, meaning he had yet to prove himself in the great hunt. "Fresh meat?" Zixthara thought with amusement. "Show me," Zixthara commanded. The main screen changed to show a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. It looked peaceful, almost boring. White clouds swirled over blue oceans and brown continents. Nothing about it suggested danger or excitement. "They call themselves humans," the young hunter continued. "They have just discovered faster than light travel. Our scouts say they are weak. Soft skin, no natural weapons, average intelligence. The Hunt Council has classified them as Class D prey." Zixthara's mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his kind. Class D was the lowest rating possible. It meant the prey was barely worth hunting, suitable only for children and new hunters to practice on. It had been decades since he had bothered with anything below Class A. "Why bring this to me?" he asked. "Send the younglings. Let them have their fun." "Sir, there is something else," the hunter said, his voice nervous. "They have sent ships into our territory. 3 of them have already passed through the neutral zone." Now that was interesting. Most new species stayed close to their home world for centuries after discovering space travel. They were too afraid to venture far from safety. But these humans seemed different. They were exploring, pushing boundaries, taking risks. Zixthara studied the information on his screen. The human ships were small and primitive compared to Kethmori vessels. They had basic shields and weapons that could barely scratch the hull of a hunting ship. Their crews were tiny, maybe a few dozen beings per vessel. It would be like hunting insects, but there was something else. The humans had been broadcasting messages on all frequencies, trying to make contact with other species. They seemed eager to meet new life forms. Most prey species were cautious about first contact. These humans appeared almost excited about it. "Very well," Zixthara decided. "I will handle this personally. It has been too long since I took a trophy." His bridge crew began preparations immediately. The hunting ship came alive with activity as weapons were charged and biodrones were awakened in their storage pods. Zixthara felt the familiar thrill of anticipation. Soon he would have new trophies for his collection. 2 days later, they found their first target. The human ship was called the UES Meridian, according to the markings on its hull. It was moving slowly through space, scanning nearby asteroid fields with primitive sensors. The vessel looked fragile, like an egg waiting to be cracked. "Begin the hunt," Zixthara ordered. The Kethmori ship decloaked behind the human vessel. Immediately, alarms began blaring on the Meridian's bridge. Through their sensors, Zixthara could see the panic among the human crew. They were running around their bridge like frightened animals, shouting at each other in their simple language. The Meridian tried to run, but it was hopeless. The Kethmori ship was 10 times faster and 100 times more powerful. Within minutes, they had disabled the human vessel's engines with precise weapons fire. The ship drifted helplessly in space, its crew trapped inside. "Prepare boarding pods," Zixthara commanded. "I want the crew taken alive. Fresh specimens are always more interesting." The boarding pods launched from the hunting ship like bullets, each one carrying a team of Kethmori warriors. They punched through the Meridian's hull with ease, cutting through metal as if it were paper. Within moments, the hunters were inside the human ship, but something was wrong. "Commander," came a voice over the communication system. "The ship is empty," Zixthara frowned. "Impossible. Our sensors detected 43 life forms aboard that vessel. I am telling you, sir, there is no one here. The bridge is abandoned. Life support is running, but there are no humans anywhere on the ship." This made no sense. Where could they have gone? There were no escape pods missing from the ship. No signs of a struggle. The humans had simply vanished. "Keep searching," Zixthara ordered. They must be hiding somewhere. For the next hour, his hunters combed through every section of the human ship. They found personal belongings, half-eaten meals, and workstations that had been abandoned mid-task. But no humans. It was as if the entire crew had simply disappeared into thin air. Then one of his hunters found something in the ship's computer system. A message waiting to be played. The hunter activated it, and suddenly a human face appeared on the screen. It was a middle-aged female with short brown hair and calm eyes. She was smiling. "Welcome to our neighborhood," she said in accented Galactic standard. "We've been waiting for you." The message continued. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I represent the Terran Defense Initiative. If you are receiving this message, it means you have just boarded one of our vessels with hostile intent. We want you to know that we have been watching you for some time. We know what you are and what you do to other species." Zixthara felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Confusion mixed with the first stirring of unease. "We also want you to know," Dr. Chen continued, "that we are not like the other species you have hunted. We have been preparing for your arrival. The crew of this ship was evacuated 3 days ago, when our long-range sensors detected your approach. This vessel is now serving as our formal introduction." The message paused, and Dr. Chen's expression became more serious. "You have made a mistake in coming here," she said. "You hunt for sport and glory. We fight for survival, and when humans fight for survival, we become very dangerous indeed. We suggest you leave our space immediately and never return. This is your only warning." The message ended, leaving Zixthara staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They looked as confused as he felt. In 3,000 years of hunting, nothing like this had ever happened. "Sir?" one of them asked. "What are your orders?" Zixthara's confusion began to transform into anger. How dare these primitive beings threaten him? He was the greatest hunter in Kethmori history. He had claimed more prey than any of his ancestors. These soft, weak humans thought they could intimidate him with empty words. "Signal the Hunt Council," he commanded. "Tell them I am requesting a full battle fleet." These humans want to play games with predators? Very well. Let us show them what real hunters can do. As his ship turned toward human space, Zixthara had no idea that he was about to encounter something no Kethmori had ever faced before: prey that refused to run. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the underground command center beneath the Luna facility, watching dozens of screens that showed the approaching alien fleet. The Kethmori ships were impressive, she had to admit. Each vessel was a work of art designed for war, covered in biomechanical weapons that could tear apart planets. But Sarah had spent the last 5 years preparing for this moment. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked. 18 hours, replied Captain Marcus Rodriguez from his position at the tactical display. The former Marine had been skeptical when Sarah first told him about her theories regarding the galaxy's apex predators.
Now, watching the alien fleet advance toward their home world, he was grateful she had been so paranoid. "Are all civilian populations in the shelters?"
Sarah asked. "Every major city has been evacuated to the underground facilities," Marcus confirmed. "The space elevators are shut down, and all orbital stations have been abandoned except for essential personnel." Sarah nodded. The hardest part had been convincing the Earth government to take her warnings seriously. For 3 years, she had studied the patterns of missing exploration vessels from other species. Ships would venture into certain sectors of space and simply disappear. No distress calls, no wreckage, nothing. Other alien governments claimed it was just the dangers of deep space, but Sarah had seen a pattern. Something was hunting out there. Something that left no survivors to tell their story. When humanity's first deep space missions began reporting strange sensor readings at the edge of their detection range, Sarah had convinced the Defense Council to start preparing. They had built the orbital platforms that now surrounded Earth, disguised as mining operations and communication arrays. They had developed the drone swarms that hung motionless in space, powered down and waiting. Most importantly, they had created a network of quantum sensors that could detect ships jumping out of faster-than-light travel long before those ships could see Earth. Incoming transmission from the alien fleet, the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Sarah ordered. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the face of something that definitely was not human. The being had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and its skin looked like it was made of black metal. When it spoke, its voice was deep and filled with contempt. I am Commander Zixthera of the Kethmori hunting fleet, the alien said. I address the pathetic beings who call themselves humans. You have insulted me with your threats and empty words. Now you will pay the price for your arrogance. Sarah stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. Commander Zixthera, I am Dr. Sarah Chen. We met through my message on the Meridian. I told you to leave our space. Since you have chosen to ignore that warning, we must now show you why it would have been wise to listen. The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. You think your primitive weapons can harm us? We have destroyed civilizations that were ancient before your species learned to make fire. Your world will become another trophy in our collection. We shall see, Sarah replied calmly, then cut the transmission. Marcus looked at her with concern. Are you sure about this plan? We've never tested it against anything like their technology. Marcus, 3 years ago I asked you a simple question. What do humans do better than any other species we've encountered? Cooperate, he replied without hesitation. Exactly. Every alien species we've met thinks in terms of individual achievement. Their ships are designed around single commanders making decisions for entire fleets. Their warriors fight for personal glory. But humans learned long ago that the pack is stronger than the individual. On the screens around them, the Kethmori fleet began its attack on Earth's orbital space. Energy beams lanced out from their ships, striking what appeared to be defenseless mining platforms and communication satellites. Explosions bloomed in the darkness as the alien weapons found their targets. Commander Zixthara, watching from his flagship, felt satisfaction as the primitive human structures were destroyed. This was going exactly as he had expected. The humans had built impressive facilities for such a young species, but they were no match for Kethmori firepower. Begin atmospheric bombardment, he ordered. Drive the prey from their hiding places. But as his ships moved closer to Earth, something unexpected happened. The mining platforms that had been destroyed suddenly began to unfold. They had not been destroyed at all. The explosions had been a disguise, hiding the transformation of peaceful structures into weapons of war. What Zixthera had thought were simple communication satellites revealed themselves as sophisticated combat drones. Thousands of them, all connected through quantum communication links that allowed them to act as a single coordinated force. They moved like a school of fish, each individual unit responding instantly to the actions of all the others. Impossible, Zixthera muttered, as his sensors registered the true scale of the human defenses.
How did they hide so many weapons?
The answer came as more civilian structures began to transform. Cargo ships that had been moving between the planets suddenly extended weapon arrays and turned toward the Kethmori fleet. Asteroid mining operations revealed themselves as camouflaged missile bases. Even the space elevators that connected Earth to its orbital stations began firing kinetic projectiles at incredible speeds. Sir, our advanced squadrons are taking heavy casualties, one of his officers reported. The humans are using coordinated swarm tactics. Our hunters cannot target individual enemies because they are all acting as one unit. Zixthera watched in growing amazement as human tactics unfolded before him. Individual human drones were weak, easily destroyed by Kethmori weapons. But they did not fight as individuals. When one drone was destroyed, 3 others immediately moved to fill the gap. When a Kethmori ship targeted one section of the defensive grid, the humans would sacrifice those units while others flanked the alien vessel from completely different directions. They fight like insects, one of his hunters said with disgust. No, Zixthera replied slowly. They fight like a single organism with 1,000,000 bodies. The battle continued for hours. The Kethmori were superior fighters individually, but they found themselves constantly outmaneuvered by human coordination. Every time they destroyed a human position, 2 more would open fire from unexpected angles. Every time they concentrated their forces in one area, the humans would strike from somewhere else entirely. Worse, the humans seemed to learn from every exchange. Their tactics evolved in real time, adapting to Kethmori weapons and strategies faster than should have been possible. It was as if the entire human defense network was thinking and learning as one mind. Deep in the Luna command center, Sarah watched the battle with grim satisfaction. The artificial intelligence networks they had developed were performing exactly as designed. Every drone, every weapon platform, every defensive position was connected through quantum communication. Information flowed instantly between all units. allowing the entire defense grid to react to threats faster than any biological command structure could manage. Phase 2, she ordered. Across the orbital battle zone, human manufacturing facilities that had been hidden inside asteroids and small moons suddenly came online. They began producing new drones and weapons at an incredible rate, replacing losses faster than the Kethmori could inflict them. Zixthara stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. They are building new ships in the middle of a battle. How is this possible? Sir, his tactical officer said nervously, I recommend we withdraw and request additional forces from the homeworld. For the first time in his long life as a hunter, Zixthara found himself agreeing with a suggestion to retreat. But as his fleet began to pull back from Earth's orbital space, he made a promise to himself. These humans had surprised him once. It would not happen again. He would return with the full might of the Kethmori Empire, and he would show these upstart prey what real power looked like. He had no idea that this was exactly what Sarah Chen was counting on. 3 months after the first battle at Earth, the Kethmori returned in force. Commander Zixthara led a fleet of over 200 warships, each one crewed by veteran hunters who had conquered entire star systems. The fleet carried bioweapons capable of poisoning atmospheres, gravity weapons that could crush cities, and swarms of hunter drones that had been adapted from the genetic material of 100 different warrior species. This time will be different, Zixthara announced to his fleet commanders. We know their tricks now. We will not be caught off guard by their coordination tactics. But as the massive Kethmori fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, they found something that made Zixthara's confidence waver. The humans had not been idle during the 3 months of preparation. The entire solar system had been turned into a fortress. Mars was surrounded by orbital shipyards that were building vessels at an incredible pace. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a network of weapons platforms and manufacturing centers. Even the gas giant Jupiter had been equipped with atmospheric mining operations that were producing fuel and raw materials for the human war effort. But most disturbing of all were the ships themselves. The human fleet had grown from a few dozen primitive vessels to thousands of warships. And these were not the simple exploration craft the Kethmori had encountered before. These ships incorporated Kethmori technology that had been reverse-engineered from the wrecks of the first battle. How did they learn to build with our technology so quickly? Demanded Subcommander Veltar, one of Zixthara's most experienced hunters. Humans appear to be very good at copying and improving on existing designs, Zixthara replied grimly, but stolen technology will not save them from superior numbers and experience. The second battle began with the Kethmori using their most devastating weapon, biowarfare. They released clouds of nano-organisms designed to consume metal and electronics, expecting to watch the human fleet dissolve into scrap. But the humans had prepared for this as well. Their ships were equipped with countermeasures that neutralized the bioweapons and even turned them back against the Kethmori fleet. Impossible. Veltar gasped as he watched his own bioweapons eating through the hull of his ship. How did they develop immunity so quickly? Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, watching the battle from her command ship in Earth's orbital space, smiled grimly. Because we don't fight fair, she muttered to herself. Maria had been a military historian before the alien invasion, specializing in asymmetric warfare. When Dr. Chen had asked her to help develop human tactics against the Kethmori, Maria had studied every piece of intelligence they had gathered about the alien hunters. The Kethmori fought like apex predators, from a world where individual strength determined survival. They sought honorable combat against worthy opponents. They wanted to prove their superiority through direct confrontation. Humans had evolved differently. They were pack hunters who had survived not through individual strength but through cooperation, tool use, and the ability to adapt faster than their prey could evolve defenses. All units. Begin Protocol 7, Maria ordered. Across the solar system, human forces implemented a strategy that would have been considered cowardly by Kethmori standards. Instead of meeting the alien fleet in direct battle, they began a fighting retreat. Human ships would engage the Kethmori briefly, inflict damage, then withdraw to previously prepared positions. When the aliens pursued, they would find themselves facing new waves of defenders, while the original human ships circled around to attack from behind. The Kethmori found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to stand still. Every time they concentrated their forces to destroy a human position, the humans would abandon that position and strike somewhere else. It was like trying to catch smoke with their claws. Worse, the humans were learning from every engagement. Their artificial intelligence systems analyzed Kethmori tactics in real time, then shared that information across the entire human fleet instantaneously. Within hours, human forces were deploying countermeasures to Kethmori weapons that had taken the aliens centuries to develop. "Sir," reported the communications officer on Zixthera's flagship, "we are receiving surrender offers from the human fleet." "Excellent," Zixthera replied. "Put them through." But when the transmission came through, it was not what he expected. The human speaker was a young man in a military uniform, and he was not offering to surrender. "This is Admiral David Park of the Terran Space Navy," the human said calmly. "I am calling to offer you the opportunity to surrender your fleet and withdraw from human space. You have fought bravely, but you are outmatched. We do not wish to destroy you unnecessarily." Zixthera's mandibles clicked in fury. "You dare offer me terms of surrender? I am the greatest hunter in the galaxy." "You were," Admiral Park replied. "But you are not hunters anymore. You are the hunted, and we are very good at hunting." To prove his point, Park transmitted tactical data to the Kethmori fleet. The data showed human forces that had been hidden throughout the solar system, positioned to strike at every possible escape route. The aliens had walked into a trap so large and complex that they had not even realized they were being surrounded. "We have been tracking your movements since you entered our space," Park continued. "We know the location of every ship in your fleet. We have weapons targeted at your command vessel. We could have destroyed you at any time in the past 6 hours. The only reason you are still alive is because we choose to let you live." Zixthera checked his sensors frantically. The human was telling the truth. There were hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system, all aimed at vital points on Kethmori ships. The aliens had been completely outmaneuvered without even realizing it. "This is impossible," Veltar whispered. "No prey species has ever laid a trap of this magnitude." "We are not prey," Admiral Park said, somehow hearing the comment through their communication link. "We are predators. We have always been predators. The difference is that we hunt as a species, not as individuals." The battle that followed was unlike anything in Kethmori history. Instead of glorious individual combat, it became a methodical demonstration of human technological and tactical superiority. Human ships worked together with perfect coordination, supporting each other and covering weaknesses. When a human vessel was damaged, others would immediately move to protect it while it retreated for repairs. The Kethmori, meanwhile, found their individual superiority meaningless against an enemy that refused to fight individual battles. Their faster ships were neutralized by human coordination. Their superior weapons were countered by human adaptability. Their biological advantages were overcome by human technology. Most frustrating of all, the humans seemed to anticipate every Kethmori move. Their artificial intelligence networks had studied centuries of Kethmori hunting tactics and could predict what the aliens would do before they did it. "Sir," one of Zixthera's officers reported, "we have lost 60% of our fleet. Recommend immediate withdrawal." Zixthera stared at the tactical display, watching his proud hunting fleet being systematically dismantled by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive prey. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. "Signal retreat," he ordered quietly. But as the surviving Kethmori ships tried to withdraw from human space, they discovered something that chilled them to their biomechanical cores. The humans followed them. Human ships equipped with captured Kethmori faster-than-light drives began pursuing the alien fleet beyond the solar system. They were not content to simply defend their territory. They were taking the fight to the enemy. As his damaged flagship limped toward Kethmori space, Zixthera realized that everything had changed. The humans were no longer prey hiding in their territory. They had become hunters, and they were coming for the rest of the Kethmori Empire. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy's apex predators were running for their lives. Admiral Kenji Nakamura stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the tactical display that showed human fleets advancing on 12 different fronts across Kethmori space. 6 months had passed since the Second Battle of Earth, and humanity had not wasted a single day. Report from Strike Group 7. his communications officer announced. They have successfully liberated the Zephyrian colonies. Minimal casualties on our side, Kenji nodded grimly. The Zephyrians were one of dozens of species that had been enslaved by the Kethmori over the centuries. Small peaceful beings who had been used as living research subjects for Kethmori bioweapons development. When human forces arrived at their prison worlds, the Zephyrians had thought they were simply getting new masters. They had been shocked to discover that humans had come to set them free. Any word from Admiral Chen's diplomatic mission? Kenji asked. She reports success with the Altarian Republic, came the reply. They have agreed to join the coalition and are contributing their manufacturing capabilities to the war effort. This was the human strategy that was driving the Kethmori to desperation. Instead of simply conquering territory, humanity was building alliances with every species that had suffered under Kethmori rule. The galaxy was full of civilizations that had been forced to hide in remote systems, living in constant fear of the hunters. When humans offered them protection and the chance for revenge, most accepted eagerly. But it was not just about military alliances. Humans were sharing their technology freely with their new allies, something that amazed the other species. Most galactic civilizations hoarded their advantages jealously. Humans seemed to believe that making their allies stronger made humanity stronger as well. Sir, the tactical officer called out, we are receiving a priority transmission from High Command. Put it through, Kenji ordered. The main screen flickered and Dr. Sarah Chen appeared. She was no longer in the underground command center on Luna. Instead, she was aboard the UES Unity, a massive command ship that served as the mobile headquarters for human military operations. Admiral Nakamura, she began, I have intelligence that changes everything. We have captured a Kethmori data core that contains the location of their primary breeding worlds. Kenji felt his blood run cold. In the months of fighting, humans had learned much about Kethmori biology. The aliens were not like humans who could reproduce anywhere. Kethmori required specific environmental conditions and biomechanical facilities to create new members of their species. They had only 3 worlds in the entire galaxy that could support their reproduction cycle. How reliable is this intelligence? He asked. Very reliable, Sarah replied. It came from a Kethmori commander who defected to our side. That was another shock. Humans had been surprised to discover that not all Kethmori supported their empire's hunting practices. Some of the younger generation had begun questioning whether their species' endless pursuit of prey was worth the cost. When humanity offered amnesty to any Kethmori willing to change sides, several had accepted. What are your orders? Kenji asked. We are not going to attack their breeding worlds, Sarah said firmly, but we are going to blockade them. Cut off all supply lines, all communication, all support. We are going to show the Kethmori Empire what it feels like to be trapped. Meanwhile, on the Kethmori homeworld of Kethvil Prime, Commander Zixathara stood before the High Council of Hunters. The great chamber was filled with the most powerful and ancient members of his species, beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Their biomechanical forms were more machine than flesh, their bodies modified over centuries of hunting to become perfect. Predators, explain to us how a species of soft-skinned primitives has brought our empire to the brink of collapse, demanded High Hunter Sektar, the eldest member of the council. Zixathara struggled to find words that could convey the reality of fighting humans. They do not fight like any prey we have encountered before. They do not seek individual glory or honor. They fight as a collective organism, with every individual willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of their species. Impossible, scoffed another council member. No sentient species can completely suppress individual survival instincts. These humans can, Zixathara replied. I have seen them ram damaged ships into our vessels rather than retreat. I have watched them continue fighting even when victory was impossible, simply to buy time for their allies to escape. They treat war not as a test of individual prowess, but as a mathematical problem to be solved through superior coordination and resource management. He activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the war. Red markers indicated Kethmori territory that had been lost to human advances. Blue markers showed human bases and allied civilizations. The picture was devastating. In 6 months, humanity had carved away nearly 40% of the Kethmori Empire. Worse, Zixathara continued. They are making our former prey species stronger than we ever were. They share their technology freely, coordinate their military efforts, and have created an alliance that spans dozens of species. We are no longer fighting humans alone. We are fighting half the galaxy. High Hunter Sektar rose from his throne, his ancient form towering over the assembly. Then we will use our ultimate weapon. We will activate the Devourers. A shocked silence fell over the council chamber. The Devourers were biomechanical weapons of incredible destructive power, capable of consuming entire planets. They had been created centuries ago but never used, considered too dangerous even by Kethmori standards. Sir, Zixthara said carefully, the Devourers cannot distinguish between enemy and ally. If we release them, they will consume everything in their path, including our own worlds. Then so be it, Sektar replied coldly. Better to rule over ashes than be ruled by prey. But before the council could vote on this desperate measure, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. A junior officer burst in, his exoskeleton scarred from recent battles. High Hunters, he gasped. Human fleets have appeared in orbit around all 3 breeding worlds. They are demanding our immediate surrender. The council members looked at each other in shock. The breeding worlds were the most heavily guarded secrets in Kethmori space. How had humans discovered their locations? Impossible, Sektar snarled. No outsider knows the location of the sacred worlds. Sir, the officer continued, they are broadcasting a message from Commander Veltar. He is with them. On the main screen, the face of one of their most trusted commanders appeared. Veltar looked tired but determined as he spoke to his former leaders. High Hunters, he said, I have joined the human coalition because I have seen the future. Our way of life is ending. We can either change with it or be destroyed by it. The humans offer us a choice that no prey species has ever offered, the chance to become something better than predators. He paused, then continued. They do not want to destroy us. They want to transform us, to turn our hunting instincts toward exploration and protection, rather than conquest and slaughter. I have seen their society, studied their values. They are offering us something we have never had, the chance to be part of something larger than ourselves. Sektar's mandibles clicked furiously. Traitor, you betray everything our species stands for. No, Veltar replied calmly. I am trying to save what is best about our species before it is too late. The humans have shown me that strength does not come from dominating others. It comes from lifting others up alongside you. As if to prove his point, the tactical display updated to show the true scope of human operations. They had not just blockaded the breeding worlds. They had surrounded the entire Kethmori Empire with a network of allied civilizations, all working together under human coordination. For the first time in their species' history, the Kethmori were completely outmatched. They faced an enemy that was stronger, more numerous, better organized, and more technologically advanced. But most importantly, they faced an enemy that fought for principles beyond mere survival. Zixthara looked at the display and realized that the age of the hunters was over. The question now was whether his species would have the wisdom to accept the chance for redemption that humanity was offering, or whether they would choose to die as the monsters they had always been. The siege of Kethval Prime lasted exactly 112 days. During that time, no ships entered or left the Kethmori homeworld. No supplies were delivered, no communication reached the outside galaxy, and no reinforcements came to break the blockade. The planet that had once commanded an empire spanning thousands of worlds was now completely isolated. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the final hours from the bridge of her flagship, positioned at the edge of the system. Around her, the combined fleets of 37 different species maintained their positions, a living symbol of what the galaxy could accomplish when it worked together, instead of preying upon itself. Dr. Chen, her communications officer, announced, "We are receiving a transmission from the surface. It is Commander Zixthara. Put him through," Sarah replied. The alien's face appeared on the main screen, but he looked very different from the proud hunter who had first threatened Earth. His biomechanical armor was dulled and scarred. His 4 eyes showed exhaustion, and his mandibles moved with what Sarah had learned to recognize as uncertainty. "Dr. Chen," he said formally, "I am authorized by the High Council to discuss terms of surrender." Sarah nodded. "I am listening, Commander. We wish to know what will happen to our species if we surrender. Will you destroy us? Enslave us? Use us for experiments as we have done to others?" It was a fair question. In their 3,000 years of hunting, the Kethmori had shown no mercy to any species they conquered. They had every reason to expect the same treatment from humanity. "Commander," Sarah said gently, "we have a different proposal. We want to offer your species something that has never been offered before in galactic history, the chance to change." She activated a holographic display that showed plans for a massive reconstruction project. "We want to help you transform your hunting instincts into something positive. Your people are natural explorers and survivors. Instead of hunting sentient species, we want you to help us explore the dangerous regions of space that other civilizations cannot safely navigate." Zixthera stared at the plans with obvious confusion. "You would trust us with such missions?" "Not immediately," Sarah admitted. "There would be a transition period. Kethmori volunteers would work alongside human crews and our allies. You would learn new ways of thinking about strength and purpose. Some of your people might find this transition difficult. Others might discover that cooperation brings rewards that conquest never could." "And if we refuse?" Zixthera asked. Sarah's expression became more serious. "Then we will do what we must to protect the galaxy from further Kethmori aggression. But we hope it will not come to that. We have studied your history, Commander. Your species was not always hunters of sentient beings. 3,000 years ago you were explorers and builders. You can become that again." On the surface of Kethvol Prime, the High Council debated humanity's offer with the fury of beings who had never experienced mercy from an enemy. High Hunter Sektar led the faction that wanted to fight to the death rather than accept what they saw as humiliation. "We are the apex predators of the galaxy," he raged. "We do not bow to prey." But Commander Veltar, who had been allowed to return to the planet to address the Council, presented a different perspective. "High Hunters, I have spent months working with humans and their allies. I have seen what they have accomplished through cooperation instead of conquest. Their civilization is stronger than ours ever was, not because they dominated others, but because they lifted others up." He activated his own display, showing footage from worlds that had been liberated from Kethmori rule. "Look at these planets now. The species we enslaved are building cities, developing new technologies, creating art and literature. They are contributing to something larger than themselves. When was the last time our empire created anything? When did we last build instead of destroy?" The younger members of the council began to murmur among themselves. Many of them had grown tired of endless hunting and the constant need to prove their worth through violence. The idea of using their skills for exploration and protection instead of conquest was appealing to some. "The humans are offering us a chance to be remembered as heroes instead of monsters," Veltar continued. "To be partners in galactic civilization instead of its greatest threat. Is that not worth considering?" The debate continued for hours, but eventually, even Sektar had to admit the reality of their situation. The Kethmori Empire was finished. The only question was whether they would end as a species that had learned to grow, or as one that had chosen extinction over change. The formal surrender ceremony took place in space, aboard a neutral station that had been constructed specifically for the event. Representatives from all 37 allied species attended, along with delegations from dozens more civilizations that had been liberated during the war. Commander Zixthera, representing the Kethmori, stood before Dr. Chen and formally transferred command of all remaining Kethmori military forces to the Galactic Coalition. But this was not a traditional surrender ceremony. "Today marks the end of one age and the beginning of another," Dr. Chen announced to the assembled delegates. "For 3,000 years, this galaxy has been ruled by the principle that might makes right. Today, we choose a different path. We choose cooperation over conquest, growth over domination, and hope over fear." She turned to Zixthera. "Commander, your species has the opportunity to become the first former enemy to join our coalition as equals. Your people's skills as hunters and survivors will be invaluable as we explore the unknown regions beyond our current borders. Will you accept this partnership?" Zixthera looked around the chamber at the faces of species that his people had hunted for centuries. He expected to see hatred, anger, and thirst for revenge. Instead, he saw hope, curiosity, and the possibility of forgiveness. "On behalf of the Kethmori people," he said slowly, "I accept." The ceremony concluded with the signing of the Galactic Cooperation Accord, a document that established new principles for interstellar relations. Never again would one species be allowed to dominate others through force. Resources and technology would be shared for the benefit of all. Conflicts would be resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. 2 years later, Commander Zixathera stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Dawn, watching as his mixed human Kethimori crew prepared to enter a previously unexplored nebula. Their mission was to search for new forms of life and establish peaceful contact if any were found. "Are you ready, Commander?" asked Captain Lisa Park, the human officer who served as his co-commander. Zixathera's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned to recognize as a smile. "Yes, Captain. I am ready to hunt for knowledge instead of prey." The ship entered the nebula, carrying the former apex predator of the galaxy on a mission to protect and nurture rather than destroy. Behind them, the galaxy continued to heal from 3 millennia of fear and oppression. Humanity had done something that no species in galactic history had ever achieved. They had transformed their greatest enemy into their strongest ally. They had proven that even the most violent predator could learn to build instead of destroy, to cooperate instead of dominate. The age of hunters was over. The age of explorers had begun. And at the heart of this new galactic civilization stood humanity, not as conquerors or rulers, but as teachers and partners, showing by example that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to create something better than what came before. The galaxy would never be the same again. And for the first time in thousands of years, that was a very good thing.